When Zoro finally opens his left eye, will it be like Mihawk's eyes? Could it contain the most powerful future sight haki in One Piece? Or is it maybe going to be the physical manifestation of Zoro's Conqueror's haki, the Eye of the Asura? Oh, hello there! Today is the day I finally do one of the One Piece theories I've been kind of actively avoiding, honestly, for the last 5 years or so. Because to be completely honest, for the longest time, I've been very strictly against the idea of Zoro having any type of special eyeball, because I just did not think it was anything more than a visual reminder of his time with Mihawk. But boy, time and time again, comments keep telling me that I need to unravel this mystery, saying it's going to change the entire series. So I'm gonna break it down once and for all today, the arguments for and against this theory, by using in-series feats, top-tier evidence, and even some deep religious connections that Zoro has as well. And my goal here is that by the end, I will either have fully debunked this theory once and for all, or somehow have proved myself wrong and just accept the fact that Zoro does have a Sharingan, or, you know, just something like that. Now, in case you've never heard about this idea before and have no clue what I'm even talking about right now, let me fill you in for a second. People have been speculating about Zoro's left eye basically ever since he returned from the time skip from his training with Mihawk, with his left eye being closed and scarred. It is a very shonen anime thing to do, obviously, so I do understand people's questions. Characters like Gojo, Kakashi, and Kenpachi, all of them are incredibly cool, admittedly, and really strong characters who do keep their powerful secret eyes covered, so naturally a character like Zoro who just suddenly reappears with his eyes shut out of nowhere after having leveled up with the world's strongest swordsman was a little bit suspicious, I'll admit that much. And let me tell you that One Piece fans have been obsessed with the possibility that Zoro will one day just open the second eye and reveal a new power, and that he's only been using like, I don't know, 1% of his true ability, especially since we've never gotten an explanation for what happened to his eye, and somehow none of the other Straw Hats ever asked him about it either. So, in my quest to finally disprove this theory, I thought it would be best to tackle this really early on. Was this simply a training accident that happened during his intense sparring session with the world's strongest swordsman, or is there actually proof that there is something more to this idea than really just a meme so far? Reading back through it, what do we actually know happened during the time skip in volume, what is this, 61? Okay, so I basically went back and reread the entire time skip arc very carefully, and we do know that Zoro got on his hands and knees and begged for Daddy Mihawk to train him, forfeiting his own pride to obviously get stronger, not only for himself, but mostly for his captain. And we do know that once returns back to Sabaody after the time skip, or what I realized after rereading it in Japanese, actually, it's actually called Shabondi, because Shabon means soap bubble, which man, where was I going with? Oh yeah, right. At this point, Zoro had gained incredibly haki mastery, and the best example in my mind is just how he suddenly has like the best armament haki out of the entire Straw Hat crew. Something that a surprisingly large amount of people kept insisting was due to his hidden eyeball powers. So, let's see. How much stronger is Zoro really after the time skip? And despite my skepticism, is there like any evidence in here saying it has to be from his eyeballs? Okay, so Zoro has always been very durable, as we've seen with his endurance during Arlong Park, after his battle with Mihawk, and of course the very iconic nothing happened moment on Thriller Bark. But it kind of only got crazier after Mihawk built him up as well. For one, we see his mastery of armament haki help him almost effortlessly cut down the stone giant Pika, an absolutely titanic feat, fairly casually, but I'll hear you. I mean, that doesn't necessarily scale him above Luffy. I mean, who knows? Maybe Luffy could have taken Pika down as well. I mean, probably. But what I found next instead really surprised me. Let me show you a key moment in Punk Hazard that is the reason that I believe Zoro has way stronger haki than Luffy had at that point. Now, you probably forgot, because I completely did as well until looking into it again for this video, but the Punk Hazard Dragon was actually a real menace. Its reinforced body was durable enough to tank a jet bullet straight to the face casually, leaving Luffy questioning how tough it actually was. And then it just promptly blasted the Straw Hat captain away while using his gear seconds. But of course, that wasn't the case with Zoro, because using using his one-sword style, he channeled his inner Ryuma, decapitating that dragon. And I gotta be real, I probably never gave Zoro enough credit for this feat, but in retrospect, it's actually pretty crazy, as dragons were once the ultimate creatures in the One Piece world, even if this one was a replica. And while I kind of had to admit that this was a really unusual and noticeable feat, it didn't really prove anything to me about Zoro's eye being special in particular. However, of course, there is a lot more to cover, because I realized that it wasn't just his armament haki that just out of nowhere exploded. He returned from the time skip with a few other impressive haki skills in his back pocket as well. So let me just address this right now, because honestly, it's still pretty wild in retrospect. After training with Mihawk for a couple of years, Zoro suddenly has like Conqueror's haki? And I mean, we've never really seen him use anything like it before, unless you count the Asura, but it's true. I mean, after the time skip, he gained access to this top tier level haki that 1 in a million people have, particularly in the form of Asura, because remember, Kaido confirms that this is actually Conqueror's haki in Wano after Zoro makes the King of the Beasts himself bleed. And basically, after a quick PTSD trip remembering Kozuki Oden, Kaido actually acknowledges that Zoro's technique uses advanced Conqueror's haki, and we then see him truly master it to unleash the full power of Enma against King, which honestly is legitimately insane, because that means that in the manga, Zoro just completely skipped regular tier Conqueror's haki, if I understand it correctly. He just skipped straight to advanced, meaning, I mean, he is a real monster. And no, anime only people, he didn't actually use it on some fodder pirates, because that sadly is just filler, though it was a really cool moment, I gotta admit. And at this point, I do have to concede at least a little bit. I mean, Zoro using advanced Conquerors out of nowhere is definitely a plus point for Team Special Eye, because I remembered that Conqueror's haki throughout the entire series is heavily connected to ice. I mean, I don't need to tell you that the menacing glare that precedes any insane use of Conqueror's haki is literally one of the most iconic things in One Piece ever. Whether it's Shanks in Chapter 1, Katakuri versus Luffy, or of course Luffy epically dropping 50,000 fishmen, there's a really clear tie between staring down your opponents to show you mean business and massive displays of Conqueror's haki like this. Follow me on Patreon, it's full of incredible benefits like extra videos, access to exclusive community polls, and quality artwork. Conqueror's haki. Alright, but now it's actually time for me to debunk that exact point, because I do think that there's more to this than meets the eye. Yeah, Kaido does point out Asura is tied to Zoro's Conqueror's haki. That fact is unquestionably true, but this also means that he has been using Conqueror's haki ever since Enies Lobby, something that I did mention earlier, which is something I of course needed to point out here as a skeptic, because it means that Mihawk didn't just unlock the secret power inside of Zoro. Instead, it's been kind of foreshadowed through his secret Asura powers basically ever since he used it for the first time pre-time skip. And don't worry, I'm actually gonna get deep into the Asura lore properly in a few moments, because begrudgingly, I kinda have to admit that there are some parallels with it that may point to it being connected to his eyes after all. But in the meantime, first, I need to talk about something else that I found in my research that I think was definitely worth sharing here. Because turns out that there's actually a different connection to Mihawk that gives this eye theory some merit. So don't worry, if you're fighting for this theory, the case isn't just closed quite yet, as much as I honestly kind of wish it would be. So what am I talking about here? Well, it kind of all has to do with Mihawk's boyfriend, best friend, or rival, Red Hair Shanks. Now, in the special volume released with Film Red, volume 4 billion, we actually learned that Shanks has a power known as Observation Killing. What a badass name. And that power actually earned him the title of Killer of Observation Haki. Okay, big whoop, right? Shanks can stop advanced observation haki like Future Sight. That's a great ability, but why am I talking about this right now? I'm supposed to be talking about Mihawk and Zoro and his eye, right? Oh, wait a second. Let me walk you through my thought process for this, and it'll become much more clear what I mean. I was thinking that if Zoro actually had a special eyeball, it would probably look like Mihawk's really cool, unique hawk eyes, right? Generally, I think that most eyeball theorists believe this fact, and that's why it's staying hidden, because Oda is waiting to reveal it in the final saga as a way to help boost up Hawkeye's street cred or something like that. After all, Mihawk has 2 of them, which would mean that he has double the secret eye power compared to Zoro once we find out whatever it actually is. And of course, it would just help Mihawk feel incredibly powerful, but it doesn't really answer the question of why are his eyes like that? that. So let me tell you what I think might be the case here and why it's relevant to proving or disproving this eye theory. We do know that Mihawk used to clash swords with red hair Shanks in the past. They're rivals, and it's kind of implied that Mihawk's sword skills might even be greater than Shanks's. But then again, even with one arm less, Shanks does seem to be the overall top dog out of these two when all their other powers are included. But what exactly is actually giving Shanks his edge here? Well, I kind of thought back to all of Shanks's crazy haki feats, and I realized it's not just his Conqueror's haki that is completely broken, because during his battle with Kid, he shows off the most impressive use of observation haki in the series so far. He looks ahead like a couple of minutes into the future, and yet for some reason, he still needed to develop this observation killing power, which seems to imply to me, like thinking about it, that someone has even better future sight than he does, so, you know, otherwise, why the need to cancel it out? And so this question has led me to the conclusion that Shanks might have developed the observation haki killing technique to just hard counter Dracula Mihawk, who earned his title of Hawkeye from the super advanced observation haki that his eyes have, and just by fact that he has the best observation haki, his eyes have awakened to that form, which in turn then may be the power that Zoro unlocked in his left eye after having trained with him during the time skip. Alright, I probably sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, which I am, but that's a different point for a different video when I have a full breakdown and just start talking about ancient aliens on my IRL channel. No, instead I actually found some potential evidence that ties Mihawk's unique eyes to his potentially divine observation haki. Because once I connected these dots, I realized that maybe Zoro's Sharingan does actually exist, and I don't know how I feel about that fact quite yet. Okay, here's what I remembered and then researched and found. In the Weaver Card databook, Oda actually revealed that Mihawk's original title was actually originally supposed to be clairvoyant, not Hawkeyes. Now, in case you don't know, a clairvoyant is defined as a person who claims to have a supernatural ability to perceive events in the future or beyond normal sensory contacts. And this may sound a little bit confusing, but basically what it boils down to is that the power of seeing the future at an incredible level has always, from the start of the show, been heavily tied to Mihawk. In fact, this level of power would also explain how in chapter 925, Mihawk from his island could have sensed the reverie, causing him to warn Perona that now is probably a good time to move since they decided to come after the warlords. Now, this moment is a really hotly debated topic, and several people, including myself, are a little bit skeptical of this, because if you pay attention, during that same chapter, Mihawk was just reading the newspaper, and I think it's fair to assume that the news of the reverie were just being pushed out into the world fairly quickly, especially as Morgan's was in Marijois. But kind of regardless of if that moment is an example of just how big his haki actually scales, it is kind of undeniable that Mihawk's observation haki is absolutely god tier, or at least top tier, especially because everyone holds it in such high regard. Now, it is important to remember, I think, that the clairvoyant title was scrapped in the end and should be taken with some grains of salt, but it wouldn't be the first time either that we've seen scrapped themes and content repurposed in One Piece before either. I mean, the whole concept of peace mains and Morganeers was technically scrapped after the initial draft of Roman's Dawn, aka Beta One Piece, but the concept of good versus bad pirates is still a major part of the story. So scrapped content can absolutely show itself in different ways in the main storyline. And so I think in the effort of fairness, I should probably counterpoint my previous counterpoint, because there is in fact someone with those same special eyes that may actually also have absolutely incredible observation haki. We're talking about the Supreme King Emu. Because come on, you just know that I could not talk about special Mihawk eye powers and Zoro powers without pointing to the fact that Emu and Mihawk somehow seem to share these same special circular eyes. And I mean, I'm just gonna assume that they're not related. They do look incredibly similar, and it's kind of been a very long and obvious fan theory that these two characters share some sort of connection because of this. I mean, some people do think that Mihawk is Emu's son or related to them, but after looking into it, I personally don't buy that. I believe that these circular eyes are are actually how Oda acknowledges characters with divine future sight. Meaning that I kind of also suspect that Luffy might have these pupil in the ends as well. And my first piece of evidence for this divine observation is the ending of chapter 1122, when Imu from up on Marijua actually notices the immense release of haki from Joy Boy's knot. By that I mean someone releasing a knot of haki that Joy Boy had stored. I mean, if you don't know what I'm talking about, like, let's not get too... It's basically a haki blast from Joy Boy. Now, this could of course absolutely be Imu feeling that through the Gorosei, as literally the next chapter shows, he has some sort of really weird mind link power to them when he killed Saturn. Or it could be that Joy Boy's haki is just so powerful it could be felt all around the world, but then again, no one else reacted to it, at least as far as we know. So that could be an explanation, but even then, if we follow already shown in-universe rules for this really weird ability that Imu has, observation haki is the thing that most accurately fits how Imu can see and feel what the Gorosei do. It could actually be kind of similar to how Yasop and Usopp connect through the observation haki in film Red, and well, again, it is not canon technically. It wouldn't be the first time that a One Piece movie shows a character or a power that ends up being real in the actual storyline. And remember, that same movie also spoiled that Shanks is a figureland in a form of celestial dragon. Or just look at the Golden Line Shiki, who's also a canon character that got kind of presented in that movie format, which technically not canon, but you know, the character is real in the world. But then maybe that's the thread that I have to follow if I want to unravel Zoro's eye as well. I'm feeling I'm kind of getting close to debunking this, but I need to be absolutely certain. Now, as you can tell, the evidence itself here so far heavily relies on Mihawk that there's anything to this, and all of Mihawk's holy symbolism, like his cross, the giant crossblade Yoru, and the Live Love Jesus sticker that he has on his pirate ship, all of them connect to the many biblical connections that Imu has. You know, being the bad god who flooded the entire world, so maybe the secret to Zoro's eye is actually in the Bible. Alright, bear with me guys, it actually makes more sense than I would like to. The evil eye is a common symbol in a lot of religions, especially Judeo-Christian beliefs. In a nutshell, it's a really powerful and demonic lance believed to have the ability to cause injury or even death to those in its sight. I don't know about you guys, but to me it actually sounds kind of like the type of Conqueror's haki that the King of Hell could actually use. And let's face it, if he's going to be King of Hell, then he's kind of gonna embrace his dark side. Zoro always has sort of done this anyways, meaning that he may embrace a different eye, the evil eye. Evil being seen through the eyes is actually something already tied deeply into One Piece, and with a prominent swordsman no less. As you probably know, Admiral Fujitora blinded himself on purpose because he has seen so much evil in this world, even going so far as to state that not having sight is a blessing, which is, I mean, that man must have lived through some really dark stuff. And if we take this statement and apply it to Zoro, it would mean that he walks the fine line between good and evil with one eye shut and one eye open, which, as you probably have guessed, I found also, yep, connected to the Bible. In Luke 11:34, Jesus compares the eye to the lamp of the body, stating that a generous eye will fill the body with light, while an evil eye will fill it with darkness. Zoro here is the King of Hell, a man who has embraced evil and thus the darkness it brings with him. And this power theoretically could manifest in his evil eye, filling the dark void left by the injury that he took battling Mihawk, who is, you guessed it, a holy man. And actually also found some evidence that these themes are mimicked in Hinduism with the Asura no less as well. I mean, the Asura, in case you don't know, are demigod-like beings that are associated with Devas, the good gods. However, it is also said that they often live in fear of those holy beings, and they can have good or bad qualities, but I found it really compelling actually that in later text, malevolent Asuras compete against these Devas and are considered enemies of the gods. Can you remind me again where I've heard that phrase before in One Piece? Alright, it's literally how Imu describes the D-clan to Cobra, the enemies of the gods. You know who else is the enemy of the gods? Straw Hat Luffy and all of his crew. And that means that you, dear Zoro, are an enemy of God as well, one of the malevolent Asuras, which truly does mean that you are the King of Hell. I gotta admit, that's pretty cool, but get this, I actually found a different text that not only connects the Ashura side, but also to Hawks. In the Great great calm observation, a guy who I think is pronounced Ziyi says the following: always desiring to be superior to others, having no patience for inferiors, and belittling strangers. Like a hawk flying high above and looking down on others, and yet outwardly displaying justice, worship, wisdom, and faith, this is raising up the lowest order of good and walking the way of the Asura. Huh, kinda sounds like Zoro to me. I mean, he does desire to be superior to others, the world's strongest swordsman, and to do that, he becomes like a hawk, aka Mihawk. He looks down on others with justice, worship, wisdom, and faith in his captain, walking the way of his Asura. And you know, I kind of hate to admit it, but there is a lot to connect observation, mindfulness, and strength to eyeballs and sight across many religious texts, and we do know that Oda loves to make these sorts of allusions, references, and thematic tie-ins for his series. Okay, but even if there's something to this, it still begs the question, why? Why does Zoro need a special eye or special eye observation power to become the world's strongest swordsman in the One Piece world? After all, the only narrative reason to give him one would be to attain his goal, right? And how does this help him defeat Mihawk? Okay, let's start with the obvious one. Blackbeard's resident swordsman, Shiryu. I mean, he's been framed to be Zoro's Blackbeard pirate rival guy ever since we were introduced to him back during Impel Down. And honestly, it's pretty simple why Zoro would need an insane observation haki upgrade to defeat him, because he is invisible. His clear fruit makes him an incredibly sneaky and dishonorable swordsman. Only a character like Garp, a true haki master, was able to read some of his movements fairly late. And I think we can all agree that Zoro definitely right now is not at that level yet, but if that eye actually holds divine sight, well, then maybe he's just in business for that. But there is actually a major counterpoint to this as well, which is the fact that in Alabasta, Zoro may have tapped into the voice of all things in order to defeat Mr. One. It's an often overlooked element of that match because it has been a couple of years since it, but Zoro does acknowledge that he can hear the breath of the rocks and everything around him, letting him cut through those bones. And if he's just been able to perceive stuff like that ever since the beginning, then an invisible man honestly doesn't seem like the hardest thing to kill for him. Unlike his next big threat though, which is Venus Juro. You see, after watching them clash during Egghead Island, I have been knocking my head around trying to figure out just how in the world Zoro will defeat this dude. This guy is a master swordsman who seems to wield the supreme great blade, the Shodai Kitetsu, and has the power to slash through the entire Labo phase as well as blitz all of the Pacifista with a sword strike that seemed to freeze them from the inside out. Actually, looking at that again, could it be that he has the same powers as Brook, like these freezing underworld powers? Anyways. Also, we also saw after Egghead Island, it seemed that the Gorosei are pretty much immortal, so he's got to deal with that issue as well. So, honestly, even with a divine eyeball, I'm not quite certain how Zoro will ever defeat this guy unless this special power everyone seems to think he has is even stronger than that of the Gorosei. Now, if we wanted to follow that logic, I would think that he's more likely to receive a massive power boost on Elbaf and that his missing eye is a hint at what is to come. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Odin, the All-Father, the highest god in Norse mythology, sacrificed his eyes, usually his left eye, for incredible power as well. In a bunch of different interpretations, this eye lets him see all things, manipulate space and time, Obito says hi, and become all-knowing. So only time will tell as Elbaf is underway right now, but it's looking likely based on the massive raven that abducted the Straw Hats being named after Odin's ravens and the insane amount of Nordic references in the series. However, I actually think that it's more likely that Brook, who I just mentioned shares similar ice-freezing underworld powers, is the one who's gonna help Zoro figure out how to defeat him. Which of course then just leaves the man of the hour, so let's settle it. Would a special eye let him defeat Dracul Mihawk? No. Absolutely not. The logic is just completely missing and everything just starts falling apart with this one. I mean, even if Zoro has his own version of Mihawk's eyes, it would only be half as powerful, and that's assuming that the eye is special, which I haven't been conclusively able to prove here, and the best evidence I can even gather comes from some biblical references, shonen tropes, and the fact that one of his final enemies is invisible. And also, so many questions rise up if you believe he does have a secret power, like why not use it on the roof against Kaido? Or why did Rob Lucci hold him off for so long during Egghead Island? And honestly, the biggest thing that I have to ask is, if Mihawk's eyes are some sort of divine power he shared with Imu, why don't all the Seraphim have that as well, or at least S-Hawk? If it's not something that you awaken, it would be part of his bloodline elements used to create the fallen angel, so he should have that power, again, if it's not an awakened one. Now, I actually think that the more likely option here is that in order to defeat Mihawk, Zoro is going to need to draw out his true Conqueror spirit and win with just raw skill, raw power, and raw determination. Because if he needed to train with Mihawk and unlock some secret special power, it would kind of make his entire dream somewhat pointless. He would only become the strongest by having Mihawk give him a power-up, not through his own blood, sweat, and tears. So Zoro's story to me has always been about hard work and determination, not special devil fruits, cyborg bodies, or nipple lights, if you get my drift. Nonetheless, I have to admit that unfortunately for Zoro, Mihawk is going to be the hardest battle he will ever have. I mean, we're talking about a man who slashes icebergs like butter, defeats entire fleets like it's nothing, and rivals the strongest of the Yonko in the world. He is literally a one-man army, and his power is unlike anything else in the series. Don't believe me? Well, I proved it in this video, trying to answer the question that if Mihawk wanted to, could he become King of Pirates all by himself potentially? Go check it out and then come back here and try to tell me that Zoro could actually beat this absolute unit of guy. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. This was a fun one. Let me know what you think, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.